You're sitting in your living room, scrolling through car ads, and suddenly you see it. A brand new muscle car with those classic racing stripes, that unmistakable roar, a design that screams 1969, except the price tag screams 2026, and it's somewhere north of $70,000. Your heart skips a beat, because for just a second, you're 17 again, watching Steve McQueen tear through San Francisco, and the automaker knows it. They're counting on it, because they've just reached into your chest, grabbed your heartstrings, and they're about to make you pay premium dollar for feelings you didn't even know you still had. If you want to understand exactly how the car industry is weaponizing your memories to empty your wallet, you need to stay with me until the very end of this video. And hey, smash that like button right now and subscribe, because what I'm about to reveal will change the way you look at every single car commercial forever. Hey, this is Mark, and you're welcome to AUTOSAYS. Now here's something they don't want you thinking about while you're test driving that retro-styled beauty. The entire automotive industry is built on a calculated psychological operation that's been refined over decades, and you're the target. Let me take you back to 1973. The year everything changed for American automakers. The oil crisis hit like a freight train. Gas prices quadrupled overnight, and suddenly those massive V8 engines weren't symbols of freedom anymore. They were financial liabilities. Detroit was in panic mode. The muscle car era died almost instantly, replaced by depressing economy boxes that couldn't outrun a golf cart. But here's where it gets interesting. An entire generation of Americans never got over what they lost. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and something remarkable started happening in boardrooms across Michigan. Marketing executives realized they were sitting on a goldmine of emotional data, decades worth of cultural memory tied up in chrome bumpers and hood scoops, and the people who grew up idolizing those cars were now in their peak earning years. Think about that for a second. What would you pay to feel 25 again? The accountants at Ford did the math, and in 2005, they brought back the Mustang with a design that looked like it rolled straight out of 1968, except it had airbags, fuel injection, and a price premium of about $8,000 over the outgoing model. Guess what happened? It sold like crazy, absolutely demolished sales projections, because people weren't buying a car, they were buying a time machine. Dodge watched this unfold and said, "Hold my beer." In 2008, right before the entire economy collapsed, they launched the Challenger, a car so deliberately retro it looked like a museum piece, and charged $40,000 for the privilege of pretending it was 1970 again. But wait, you might be thinking, isn't that just good design? Well, let me tell you what's really happening under the hood of this nostalgia operation, and trust me, it's way more calculated than you imagine. The automotive industry employs teams of psychologists, yes, actual PhDs in behavioral science, whose entire job is studying what makes you emotionally vulnerable to purchasing decisions. They've discovered something fascinating. Human beings experience what researchers call nostalgia-based consumption, which is basically a fancy term for buying stuff that makes you feel good about your past. Here's the kicker though, you don't even need to have lived through the era they're selling you. Studies show that people feel nostalgic for time periods they never experienced. It's called vicarious nostalgia, and it's incredibly powerful because it's tied to stories you've been told, movies you've watched, music you've heard. The car companies know this, so when Chevrolet designed the new Camaro, they didn't just copy the original, they cherry-picked the most emotionally resonant design elements from multiple decades, creating a Frankenstein's monster of manufactured memories that triggers nostalgic responses in everyone from baby boomers who actually owned the original to millennials who only know it from Transformers movies. And here's something that'll blow your mind. The financial engineering behind these nostalgia machines is absolutely brilliant in the most diabolical way possible. See, normal cars depreciate fast, losing about 20% of their value the moment you drive off the lot. But retro-styled vehicles depreciate slower because they're marketed as modern classics, which means dealers can justify higher initial prices and banks can offer longer loan terms because the residual value stays higher. You're essentially paying a nostalgia tax that follows you through the entire ownership experience. Let me hit you with some numbers that'll make this crystal clear. In 2010, the average transaction price for a full-sized pickup truck was $32,000. But by 2024, that same truck, configured with Heritage Edition packages, retro color schemes, and classic badging options, pushed the average price north of $65,000. That's not inflation, that's emotional manipulation converted directly into profit margin. But hold on, because the plot thickens in ways you won't believe. Around 2015, something shifted in the nostalgia playbook. Automakers realized they could create artificial scarcity around these retro designs, making limited edition throwback models that sold out in hours and immediately appeared on resale markets at double the sticker price. Ford did this masterfully with the GT supercar, designing it to look like the 1966 Le Mans winner, producing only 250 units per year, charging $500,000, and even then you had to apply for the privilege of buying one. The message was clear: nostalgia isn't just valuable, it's exclusive, and if you can afford it, you're part of an elite club of people who appreciate automotive heritage. Suddenly, we weren't just buying transportation, we were buying identity, status, and a curated version of history that never quite existed the way we remember it. Now you're probably wondering, how deep does this rabbit hole actually go? Well, buckle up, because we're about to enter Act 2 of this story, and things are about to get real uncomfortable. The modern nostalgia industrial complex in automotive isn't limited to design anymore. It's infected every aspect of how cars are marketed, financed, and even manufactured. Take the engine sounds pumped through your speakers in modern performance cars. Yeah, you heard that right. That glorious V8 rumble you hear when you floor the accelerator in your brand new muscle car, there's a decent chance it's being artificially enhanced or completely synthesized through your sound system, because modern engines, with all their emissions equipment and sound deadening, are too quiet to trigger the emotional response automakers need you to have. BMW got caught doing this, Volkswagen admitted to it, and Ford literally trademarked specific engine sounds because they understand that the auditory experience of driving is tied directly to nostalgic memories, and if the real engine doesn't sound right, well, they'll just manufacture the sound you expect. This is psychological warfare disguised as product development. But here's where the history gets really twisted. The cars we're nostalgic for weren't actually that great. Seriously, go drive an actual 1969 Mustang today. No anti-lock brakes, no traction control, drum brakes that barely work, handling that will kill you in wet weather, fuel economy that makes a modern pickup truck look like a Prius, and build quality so poor that dealerships in the 70s had entire teams whose only job was fixing brand new cars before delivery. But you know what those cars had? They had soul, or at least that's the story we tell ourselves, because what they really had was simplicity, mechanical directness, and most importantly, they existed during formative periods of our lives when everything felt more intense, more real, more meaningful. The automakers aren't selling you the actual experience of driving a classic car, they're selling you the idealized memory of a time when life seemed better. And that, my friends, is worth way more than sheet metal and horsepower. Here's something genuinely creepy that'll make you question everything. Color psychology in retro automotive marketing is so sophisticated it borders on mind control. Chrysler spent millions researching which specific shades of orange, green, and yellow triggered the strongest nostalgic responses in focus groups, ultimately creating heritage colors that were actually slightly different from the original pigments because the modified versions tested better for emotional engagement. They literally scientifically engineered fake history to seem more authentic than actual history, and we eat it up because it feels right even though it's manufactured. The same thing happened with interior materials. Modern cars use synthetic materials designed to look and feel like vintage leather and metal, but they're actually space-age polymers that outperform the originals in every measurable way, except one. They cost automakers less to produce, while allowing them to charge more because they're marketed as premium heritage materials. It's the ultimate scam, reducing production costs while increasing transaction prices, all wrapped in a bow of carefully constructed nostalgia. And if you think this is just about American muscle cars, think again, because every automaker on the planet is running the same playbook. Mini Cooper brought back the classic British design, charged a premium for smallness in an era of SUV bloat, and convinced people that paying $35,000 for a subcompact car was actually a smart financial decision because heritage. Volkswagen relaunched the Beetle not once, but twice, milking nostalgia until even the most devoted fans realized they were just buying an overpriced Golf in a costume. Fiat brought back the 500, an Italian icon, and sold it to Americans who'd never seen the original but felt sophisticated driving something European and vintage. And even Jaguar just tried to completely rebrand by abandoning their heritage, realized immediately it was a catastrophic mistake based on public backlash, and you can bet they'll swing back hard into retro styling because the market has spoken. We want our cars to remind us of better days, whether those days were actually better or not. Now we're entering the final act, and this is where everything comes together in a way that's either going to make you angry or liberate you. Maybe both.
The question we need to ask is this. If nostalgia is being weaponized to manipulate our purchasing decisions, if the entire retro car movement is essentially a psychological operation designed to extract maximum profit from our emotions, what do we do about it? Here's the thing, and this might surprise you. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy the car you want. What I am saying is you should go into that dealership with your eyes wide open, understanding exactly what's happening. When you feel that flutter in your chest looking at a new Bronco designed to look like the original, that's not an accident. That's millions of dollars in research creating that exact feeling. When the salesperson starts talking about heritage and legacy and connecting with automotive history, they're reading from a script designed to bypass your rational decision-making centers and speak directly to your emotional core. The average car payment in America right now is over $700 a month, and the average loan term has stretched to nearly 70 months because people are financing feelings they can't afford. But here's what's truly wild. The automakers are starting to run out of nostalgia to mine. They've brought back virtually every iconic nameplate from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and now they're getting desperate, reaching into the 90s for inspiration, which is hilarious because 90s cars were mostly terrible. We're seeing retro versions of vehicles that nobody was nostalgic for until the marketing department told us we should be. Toyota is selling a new Land Cruiser that looks like the 80s version, and suddenly everyone's pretending they always loved 80s Land Cruisers, even though most people couldn't have picked one out of a lineup 3 years ago. This is nostalgia creation in real time, manufacturing demand for a past that didn't exist in our memories until corporations implanted it there. And you know what the most ironic part is? In 20 years, people are going to be nostalgic for the cars we're driving today, the ones we think are soulless and over-computerized, because nostalgia isn't really about the object, it's about the time in our lives when that object existed, and every generation thinks their era had something special that's now lost. The cycle continues forever, an Ouroboros of manufactured emotion and corporate profit. So here's my challenge to you. Next time you see a car commercial featuring a retro-styled vehicle with dramatic music and sunset lighting and shots of happy families or lone wolves driving through Monument Valley, I want you to pause and ask yourself what they're really selling. Are they selling transportation, performance, reliability, or are they selling you a story about who you used to be, who you want to be, or who you think you should have been? Because once you see the game, you can't unsee it, and that awareness gives you power. The power to make decisions based on what you actually need, rather than what carefully designed marketing campaigns have convinced you to want. Now, does this mean retro cars are bad? Absolutely not. Some of them are incredible machines, marvels of modern engineering wrapped in emotionally resonant design. And if you can afford one and it brings you genuine joy, that's a beautiful thing. But go in knowing exactly what you're buying and why. Understand that you're paying a premium for feelings and make peace with that transaction. The automotive industry is going to keep using nostalgia because it works. It works incredibly well. And as long as human beings have memories and emotions, it will continue to work. But you, right now, watching this video, you have something most people don't. You understand the mechanism. You see the strings being pulled. And that makes you dangerous to their profit margins, in the best possible way. Knowledge is power, and understanding how automakers manipulate nostalgia to inflate prices means you can walk into any dealership, appreciate the artistry of their emotional manipulation, and then negotiate like someone who knows exactly what's real and what's manufactured sentiment. The future of automotive marketing is going to get even more sophisticated as electric vehicles take over, and automakers lose the visceral appeal of engine sounds and mechanical complexity. They're going to lean even harder into retro styling and heritage branding, because it's one of the few emotional levers they'll have left. We're already seeing it with the electric Mustang, the electric Hummer, the upcoming electric Charger, all draped in nostalgia because the underlying technology can't provide the emotional connection by itself. This is just the beginning, and if you found this video valuable, if it changed how you think about automotive marketing and nostalgic manipulation, do me a favor and share it with someone who's thinking about buying one of these retro-styled vehicles, because the best defense against emotional manipulation is awareness, and the more people who understand this game, the harder it becomes for automakers to play it. Thanks for watching. I'm Mark, and I'll see you in the next one where we dive even deeper into how the automotive industry shapes our desires, our wallets, and our dreams.